Greetings, Titans fans. Welcome back. And you're listening to a fan podcast of the 8-6 Tennessee Titans. Scotty, welcome back to the show.
What's up, John boy?
Well, we've got a lot to talk about, that's for sure. A lot of mostly good things, fortunately. But yeah, so if this is your first time tuning in, we are the official podcast of TitansReport.com. And we do this podcast every week during the season. And I just realized I didn't post the live link on Titans Report, so I'm going to go ahead and post that there. But we are the official podcast of TitansReport.com. Normally we have a couple guys on the show, Scotty, myself, and Jamal. Jamal could not make it tonight, contrary to popular belief. It is not because he is upset over the win. A lot of people are giving him a hard time for some of the early season predictions, but no, it's he had some work obligations tonight. So Scotty, it's just me and you to hype up this team for the next half an hour to an hour here. And I mean, this is a win. I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, but this is by far our biggest win in years. There's a thread over on Titans Report about if this game was bigger than the Broncos game, and I definitely think so, don't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, just the way it happened in terms of the Chiefs were a hot team. I mean, they were one of the hottest teams in the league coming into this game. The conditions, I mean, everybody talked about how cold it was going into this game. That's really all you heard from the media all week long was about how cold it was going to be. You go into Arrowhead, and I mean, it wasn't a must-win game, but as we talked about last week, but it was a game that would have been really nice to have. And at the end of the day, the Titans got to win, and here they are at 8-6. We'll have plenty of time before we sign off here to talk about the playoff implications, because there are all kinds of, really just a few scenarios, but based on the way things went down. But I mean, this was an exciting game. It really was an exciting game to watch. And there was a lot of people on Titans Report. One of the guys, old school, said, have you guys even watched a Titans game this year? Because they were just getting really down early. And the Titans have done that a couple times this year, and they've always bounced back every single game this year. Now, the Chiefs may have been one of the best teams that they got down against, but after getting into that 14-zip hole, the defense especially, man, I mean, they really just locked them down for the rest of the game.
Defense was very impressive in this game, and last game too.
Yeah, it's really two in a row now that the defenses look solid. LaShawn Sims getting a big-time interception.
The red zone defense was phenomenal today. They did the goal line stand, the interception. I mean, that's really what won the game right there.
Yeah, the goal line stand, man. I was trying to flag a few tweets throughout the day because there were a couple of interesting nuggets that I saw. Yeah, here's one from John Glennon, formerly of the Tennessean. I believe he's actually doing some work with CBS, like News Channel 5 right now. But he said Titans defense has now stopped 8 straight 3rd-and-1 attempts over the past 4 games. And I can't remember at what point this happened in the game, but that's an amazing stat. 8 straight 3rd-and-1 attempts against a team like the Chiefs and the Broncos, who traditionally their MO is to run the ball and to pound the other team. But that's really what the Titans did in both of these games.
Right. I believe the Chiefs were 1 of 4 in the red zone. And, of course,
Wow.
the final stop of the game was huge. I mean, that was big time play.
Had to have that one, definitely. So you actually you missed part of the game, and then you had to catch up on TiVo, right? So you probably didn't have as big of a wave of emotions as everyone else, because you got this. You watched it, but at faster speed, right? Skipping commercials.
Right. I just watched each play until I was caught up. I probably missed the first quarter. Caught up sometime in the second quarter.
Yeah, well, looking at the stats here, there were a couple of surprises. I just watching that game, it's hard to think that Rashard Matthews had 105 yards. He had a big day. He had a 46-yarder. That was the longest one of the day. And Mariota, an efficient game. The 2 turnovers obviously were very bad. And then the turnover, Matthews actually had the fumble as well. So they had 3 turnovers and still somehow managed to win this game, which is, I mean, we talked about it on the podcast. We talked about it on TitansReport.com all week long about how this is how the Chiefs win games. I mean, they're not this high octane offense. They're not a defense like the Broncos in terms of just really shutting you down the whole game, but they make big plays. And to be able to do that and still find a way to win is really kind of amazing. I think it was another tweet here that I flagged. Tom Gower, we've had him on the show before as well, on the podcast. He said this is the first Titans win where they had a turnover margin of -2 since beating the Jags in 2011. So, and to do it against a team like the Chiefs, I mean, it's just it's kind of insane, actually.
Yes, I believe I saw the Chiefs only had 7 points off the 3 turnovers, though. So once again, the defense really negated the turnovers.
Yeah, Andy Reid was talking about that after the game. When you get 3 turnovers and only end up with 7 points out of it, especially for them, when that's really what they thrive on. But yeah, defensively, yeah, go ahead.
I thought the interception Mariota threw was really more just a great play by the defense than a poor throw too. It looked like he was going to drop that in, and that guy just made an outstanding one-handed stab.
And Mariota even said that after the game too. And normally, he doesn't shy away from taking responsibility. But on that one, he just straight up said the guy made a phenomenal play. And he did. I mean, it was one-handed. And I thought he was going to slip it in there too. But what do you think about Mariota's game overall? I mean, his numbers, if you just look at the numbers, 19 of 33, 241, and had the interception, no touchdowns for the second straight week. But for me, I just thought those final drives, man, I mean, that's playoff football right there. Being able to do that at the end of a game.
Exactly. Andy Reid said it after the game too. They asked him about the rush defense from the Chiefs, and he goes, the running game of the Titans didn't hurt us that bad. They didn't get that many points off all the yards they ran for. He goes, it was the final drives with their passing game.
Yeah, I saw that.
He lit them up on those last 3 drives. I mean, the throw to Murray on 4th down.
Yeah, I was going to say that one. Whew. 4th and 5. You pretty much got to have that. And it wasn't one of those easy throws either. It was the back shoulder to the sideline. Murray nearly scored too, but it was, man, then they scored right after that with the Henry run. But yeah, I thought Mariota was much better this week than last week, even though you factor in the turnovers. Maybe you say he was a little bit better last week, but in crunch time this week, he made the plays that he had to make, whereas last week they relied a little bit more on the defense and the running game for the most. And they ran the ball a lot today too. I mean, Murray carried it 18 times. Henry had 9 carries for 58 yards. Murray had 89, and Henry had the 2 touchdowns in the game. But yeah, overall, I think you even talked about this coming into this stretch here. Mariota wasn't going to keep putting up the types of numbers he was putting up against great defenses. I mean, if you need any further proof, just look at the Patriots today against the Broncos. I mean, they won pretty easily, but their offense didn't dominate at all. I mean, they had 16 points. Brady threw 0 touchdowns, but he also threw 0 interceptions. I think he was, well, here's his, let me pull it up here. Yeah, Brady against the Broncos today, 16 of 32, 188, and he was sacked twice, no TDs, no interceptions. So against these teams like this, it's really just about minimizing the mistakes as much as you can and then making that crucial play or two in crunch time.
I think the Titans started out 1 of 6 on 3rd down conversions. And after that, they went like 5 of 8. So
wow,
the offense really came on in the 4th quarter. So I think, he had the fumble, which, you don't like to see him fumble. He hasn't done that too much lately, but after that, I thought he played really well in the second half. When they needed it most, he was money.
And they kept showing during the game, like in the first half, even they were showing the stat breakdown, and the Titans were pretty much right there in terms of yardage. But it was really that we had the big play by Hill early, and that was really the defense's blemish on the day. I mean, the other one came after a turnover. That was the 7 points after turnover when Alex Smith got that touchdown run, and they actually had all the receivers covered. The play just kind of broke down, and Smith got away and scored. But really that Tyreek Hill play is really the only big negative on the defense, because otherwise they were strong. And I think you even said, how crazy is it that they got rid of their 2 starting cornerbacks? Well, they got rid of Cox, and then McCourty got hurt today and didn't play for most of the game, and they look better.
Yeah, I mean, they are better. It's the last 2 weeks, their defense has definitely been much better, especially their coverage.
Yeah. There are a couple of plays today where, I mean, just look no further than the Sims interception. I don't know. Most people don't put a lot of stock in Pro Football Focus. I think it has some value. It's certainly not the end all be all, but they were really high on the game Sims had, and also the game that Conklin had. And when you think about what this offensive line just did the past 2 weeks against, I mean, you don't get pass rushers any better than what we saw the past 2 weeks. Now, you could say maybe Houston had an illness this week and his knee's probably still not 100%, but the Chiefs have D Ford on there as well. I think Hali played, right? He played today.
Yeah, yes.
And last week, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, Shane Ray, all those guys. This offensive line, man. I mean, Lewan and Conklin both, I think, have legit chances to be all pros, which is, for a Conklin, a rookie, I mean, that's almost unheard of.
He's legitimately possibly the best right tackle in the NFL right now.
And I don't know if you saw that little article I posted this week about how they're kind of changing up the way they're doing the all-pro team this year. From what I gathered, it's not going to be just, they're not going to have 2 left tackles. It's going to be more of, we're going to have a left tackle, we're going to have a right tackle. And I really think Conklin's got to have a strong chance, at least at the second team. But I think from what I've seen, I'm kind of like you. He's one of the best, if not the best, in football already.
They don't give it to non-skill people, but he could legitimately be offensive rookie of the year.
I was thinking about that too.
They'll give it to someone like Elliott or, a rookie.
There were people, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, people were calling out Bucky Brooks because he keeps doing these top 10 rookies. And I don't think he's had Conklin on there yet. And I've asked him about it a few times, and he's never responded to me, but he's basically said, like, he's not in my top 10 rookies. And people are like, oh, on PFF, he's ranked this. And Bucky Brooks is like, well, he's not ranked that for me. I'm just like, come on, dude. I mean, you could just say I've not seen enough of him. That's fine. I'll take that. But this guy's playing unreal for any right tackle. But then the fact that he's a rookie, yeah, I'm like you. If the media really looked at everything, he's had just as good a season as Ezekiel Elliott, who's probably going to win the award, if not even better.
The Titans gave up 1 sack and 1 quarterback hit today. And they did the same thing last week. They played Von Miller and Houston in back-to-back weeks, and he shut them down.
And back early in the year, they played, really shut down the Raiders, too, for the most part. Khalil Mack.
Well, he went, what was it, 10 or 11 games to start the season without giving up a sack? Or even giving up a pressure or something just outrageous.
Yeah, it went a really long time. I can't remember. I think it was finally, I can't remember which game it was when he finally gave it up, but I think it was the Colts game, actually. The Colts loss was when he finally gave up. Both he and Lewan, I think, in the same game, gave one up. Yeah, so elsewhere in the game, I haven't seen you post much about this, so I'm kind of curious your thoughts on Henry and Murray and the breakdown there, because a lot of people, in the game thread, it's emotions are running high with everybody, and we're all the time shouting out things. But even looking back, I'm really surprised they didn't run Henry more, especially on those 3rd and shorts when he was just. I mean, for every week he's averaging more yards per carry than DeMarco. Now, I think DeMarco is still a better complete back, as we saw on that insane catch that he made. Henry probably doesn't make that catch. But some of those 3rd and ones, I was kind of scratching my head at why we didn't go with Henry.
If I'm not mistaken, he did convert 2 3rd and shorts after people were complaining about the
I
failed
know he
ones.
definitely converted one for sure. I think one was even a 3rd and 2 that he converted.
Also, I think Henry, he runs a little timid sometimes, and I think if he was the one getting all the 3rd and 1 shorts, I'm not sure everybody would be calling for him as much as they are. I mean, I think his average is higher because they put him in more advantageous situations.
Mm-hmm.
If he carried on the short yardage, his yards per carry would probably be down. But I mean, it's a great duo either way. I mean, Murray is so underrated in the passing game, both blocking and catching. He had 52 yards receiving today, but I mean, the 3rd and shorts just stand out more when they don't get them. I think it's just really, especially when he gets tackled for a loss or tries to bounce it outside.
What did you think about the offensive game plan overall? I mean, it seemed pretty similar to last week. I thought they were, especially early, I think they made it clear they wanted to throw a little bit more. They came out throwing early in the game and kind of stalled out, and then had the Rashard Matthews, the fumble kind of hurt them. But
right,
I think it was similar to last week. But yeah, go ahead.
Without the fumble, they're on the 5-yard line, and they probably
there was that tripping penalty on that play, so the Chiefs would probably just accepted it.
Yeah, you're right, but still, we're talking about the game plan. They were obviously going down the field, and I thought the Chiefs also they did a great job breaking up some really close big plays. Like I think I saw Matthews had he had 10 targets and he caught 4 or 5 passes, but a couple of those were really good pass defense where it was just a couple inches from being a pretty good gainer.
There was even one where I feel like Matthews had 2 hands on it, and it just, I don't know. It was in traffic. It would have been a tough catch, but he got 2 hands on it.
Right.
I was surprised he didn't come away with it because he's made a lot of those catches this year.
I'd be interested to see how much Kendall Wright played too. It seemed like he was out there a lot. He didn't have a lot of catches, but maybe because they were trying to catch up or something.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, though, they didn't really, as the announcers, Trent Green and the guys kept talking about, they didn't really go away from the run, which has been one of their strengths all year. I mean, you got to hand that to Malarkey, and that even when they've gotten down, they still are running enough to keep teams honest. And, we've seen those drives here and there where they will go that no huddle and just throw. But for the most part, they really do try to stay committed to the run. And especially these past 2 weeks, I mean, that's the weakness of these two teams that we faced, has been their rushing defense.
They did a really nice job at the end of the game doing the hurry up, and it worked. They let Mariota run the hurry up on the last couple drives, and the offense is really versatile as far as being able to run heavy sets or spread the field out and let Mariota throw the ball. I mean, they're really good at pretty much everything.
Yep. I mean, I feel like we pretty much hit on the offense and defense. I think obviously the biggest topic of discussion, especially if they had lost, would have been on the 2-point conversion call to go for it. And what was it? There was like a little over 3 minutes left in the game, probably. And because of the
3:17, something like that, maybe.
Because of the 2 challenges that they lost, and then we had to take a timeout on that drive, I believe. So we had 0 timeouts. We get the touchdown. And as we've learned now after the fact, apparently Malarkey that was the plan all along. When they started the drive, they wanted to go for 2 when they got down there. And I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of it. I know you were a fan of him going for it. And what I was surprised by, I think you liked the post that talked about the numbers. It was almost like a 50-50 call when you looked at the percentages of their chances of winning if they go for it versus if they didn't. Because it really is an interesting mind game of if you go for one and if you go for two and you get it, then obviously the Chiefs have to score. So they'll be going all out for three. If you go for one and don't get it, as you pointed out, then the Chiefs are just going to go real conservative. They know the Titans have 0 timeouts and hope they can just get a first down and win the game. And then the other scenario, of course, if the Titans just kick the extra point and tie it, then you're looking at a situation of they're going to try to go down and get the win. So, I mean, for me, the reason I didn't want to do it is because of everything we were just saying about the defense. I mean, they shut them down in the second half. They didn't have a point the second half. And if we'd had a couple more timeouts or any timeouts, I think I would have been, yeah, let's try it. But the fact they had no timeouts and the defense was playing so well, because the timeouts, they just give you a little more room for error. Because if the Chiefs had gotten that first down, it's game over. But if you have a timeout in the bag, then you still have a little bit of wiggle room. But I know you see it differently, so I'll let you explain why you thought it was great. And to your point, almost a lot of the people I've seen, I was talking to my dad about the game. Most people I've talked to have said they were totally fine with it and actually liked the call. So I think I'm actually in the minority on that.
Well, I think, first of all, people want the game tied up. You just feel safer if the game's tied,
True,
right?
yeah.
So I think that slants people's view. And just the difference in the game when you're the one trying to get the field goal as opposed to defending it. I mean, it's so hard for the defense to keep the other team out of the field goal range. And I just felt like they're going to have to stop the Chiefs offense either way. I would rather stop the Chiefs offense when they're trying to run the clock out. I just felt like Malarkey thought, we'll get the ball back. If we don't get it, try to win the game. And, it could have easily not worked out, but I don't think that changed the decision. If they would have got if they'd have kicked the extra point, I think they would have, like you said, 50-50, just as likely to lose the game to a field goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be fair, I think the numbers actually favored the decision of going for two by something like 5%. So, I mean, it was a very close call, but I mean, yeah, it all worked out. I was screaming at the TV at the time, especially when they didn't get it. And I don't know, the play call was a bit strange because they didn't even have Delaney Walker in the game, probably your best receiver, he and Rashard Matthews. And Superhorn, if you guys follow him on Twitter, he does a lot of breakdowns and posts on Titans Report from time to time. Because just watching it looked to me like the play we've seen him run so many times with Fasano, where he kind of leaks out on the other side and Mariota just lofts it over to him. But from what Supernal was saying, Supernal, did I say Supernal to begin with, or did I say Superhorn? That's pretty funny.
You said Superhorn the first time.
Okay, so I got it right the first time. Yeah. What he was saying is that it actually looked like Murray was supposed to be the guy to slip out because he was blocking at first, and Fasano didn't seem to be he was more in for blocking there. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a weird call. If it was the call to Fasano, that play's worked so many times, and in fact, I've never seen it not work. But this one seems like it was a little bit of a different call.
Malarkey said in the post game that there's actually 3 options on the play, and who knows? He said that the Chiefs did a great job taking away all 3 options. So I know they showed on the replay that Matthews actually came open, but at the time, it looked to me like that at the time he came. Yeah, he was Mariota was under pressure, but as far as the decision to go for 2, Malarkey was looking past the he was looking at the remaining 3 minutes, and fans are looking at tying the game. I think that's why. And it killed me that even still, I saw a lot of people, what were they thinking there? There was still 3 minutes left. No, what are you thinking? There's 3 minutes left. You can still win the game. And you're going to have to stop the Chiefs' offense either way.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, either way, if you have the lead, if you're tied, regardless, you're going to have to stop them. But in the situation we were in, they were obviously ultra conservative because they know we're out of timeouts. But
And the
yeah,
Chiefs have a great defense, and look how easily now they pushed it on the edge there. They almost didn't get quite far enough down there, but
yeah, oh man,
the Chiefs defense. I mean, Mariota just picked them apart with ease because it is so hard to not. It's so hard to be aggressive and not, not allow the other team to get down there. You see it every week. So
the timing was so interesting because I thought if they had maybe 7 seconds, they might have tried one more play. But with 5, there's just not enough.
That's what I was thinking. They need to hurry up and get down there and run one more play. But running another play without a timeout is very dangerous.
It's risky. Yeah.
You could easily let the time run out. So, but I mean, hey, it worked out. And
Man.
I know a lot of
Go
people
ahead.
probably want to. A lot of people probably want to talk about the challenges that cause them not to have timeouts.
Oh yeah.
I myself, they never hardly overturn those. But
Yeah.
man, the second one was so obvious. I don't blame
So
Marky
too.
at all. I thought they would overturn it. I really did. I thought they would overturn it.
You're right. Those are so rarely overturned, which I think is most people's problem with it, even if it did seem clear. But to me, I was the same way. I thought it was so clear that he didn't get anywhere close to that spot. But man, the other one, that one was close too. But I think what really gave him the catch was the fact that he got the shin and knee down, which even that was really close. But that one I'd probably have a little more problem with than the other one. But I mean, the second one, the reason I didn't have as much problem with the second one, because in a close game like this, it's like when it's that close, you've got to at least take a shot on it. Because if you get the ball back right there, then I mean, you're in a totally different situation. And on the 2-point try, one thing that could be a teaching moment, I was surprised Mariota didn't just throw it up. I mean, that's one of those where an interception literally doesn't hurt you at all. When you feel that pressure there, well, I guess with Eric Berry, it could hurt you. But when you feel that pressure,
the Chiefs won a game against Atlanta that exact same way by returning it for 2 points.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, because I mean that would have put them up 3 had he pulled off another one like that. Because my thought process is just chuck it into the end zone and at least give your guy a chance. But he didn't even really do that. I would love to know if he was thinking that in the back of his mind or if it was more just a spur of the moment thing. But
they may have actually talked about it since it
they
happened.
could have.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people were just really hard on Matt Ryan for that. Because literally, I mean, if he just throws it out of bounds, they were still have been tied at that point, I think, right? Or no, they were ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that flipped the game. That lost the game.
Yep. All right, let's see. What are we forgetting? You talked about the 2 challenges. There was something else that I really wanted to oh man, how about the special teams today? That might have been the best special teams performance all year long. At first I was like, why are they kicking to Hill? But then when you really watched what they were doing, I mean, those were some directional kicks. They were getting a lot of air under those kicks to give them plenty of time to get down there. And he never really even got close to having a good return.
I know you said this last week, and a lot of people say it, just kick the ball out of bounds. You lose a lot of field position by kicking the ball out of bounds. But, I mean, it's risky. There's a reason Devin Hester and those guys return kicks because you almost have to kick the ball to those guys. But they like you said, they did a great job doing other things like kicking the ball high. And, I mean, I posted the Chiefs had 3 yards of punt return yardage.
Yeah, I saw that
for the entire game, and they weren't. I think they had 16 for kickoffs. Mariani had more return yards than the Chiefs return guys did.
Man, that guy's caught so much heat this year, but if he's not reliable, then I don't know what is, because he's been rock solid for at least catching the ball And most of the time he gets 5 or so yards. Sometimes I scratch my head when he brings it out of the end zone, but for the most part, he's been pretty reliable.
I think it also hurts him that when he was here the first time, he had a lot of success on some long returns and stuff. So people remember when he used to could do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, I mean, obviously the biggest special teams play of the day, Ryan Suckup making the kick after Andy Reid tried to ice him. And I thought, just reading Suckup's comments after the game, it was really pretty fascinating because he was saying that before the game in warmups, they weren't even kicking past 48, that they were just trying. He never even dreamed that they would attempt one from longer than that. And then after he missed the first one, I think it was actually the official Titans Twitter. Yeah, they tweeted out, on the second one, I had to throw technique out the window and just hit it as hard as I could. That was his quote. And he nailed it, man. I mean, it was right down the middle. Both of them were right down the middle, but the second one
that's
had
what I was gonna say. They
plenty of
were
leg.
both perfect.
Man, against his old team too.
He told someone after the game that it was out of his range, and he really had no idea how he made it.
I saw that one too. I mean, that's why I think a lot of Chiefs fans were even more annoyed at the timeout, is because after he realized, well, that's not going to get it there. I'm just going to have to kick this ball literally as hard as I possibly can and hope it makes it.
The timeout is another thing, like the 2-point conversion. You know, the coaches just automatically do that without thinking about it, even though the data shows that they make it more after the timeout than if you let them kick it. That's what they always do, so they always do it.
Yeah, there were a lot of – I popped in over on some of the Chiefs fans and their boards, and they were pretty upset with Alex Smith and Andy Reid this game. They thought they got too conservative. And I don't know why they went away from Tyreek Hill. I mean, they had that great rushing play, and then they never even tried it again the rest of the game. I would have at least thrown him 3 or 4 more screens in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was afraid of. I was actually afraid they were going to pass the ball on the final drive. I was afraid they were going to throw to the backside of the backfield, run a screen, some stuff like that. That's what I was afraid of.
I don't know.
I don't blame them for being upset on the final drive. They should have tried something to get a first down rather than just run it 3 times.
And even when they had the goal line situation where they ran it instead of throwing and ran it on 4th down, and we stuffed them. I mean, that was huge. And then they came back, of course, and when they were down there again, Smith threw an interception. But I don't know how if you watch Sims very closely, because I mean, I've not went back and analyzed tape, but just from what I'm seeing, I mean, it seems like he could push for we thought maybe we're going to have to worry about 2 cornerbacks next year. I think he might be a starter for us.
Oh yeah, he's definitely in the mix. You know, we can go back to a week ago when one of the fan questions was McCourty. I think we can pretty safely say he's definitely gone.
Yeah. Especially after today. I mean, he might be out for the rest of the year. I mean, we only got 2 games left, but I think Klug, Malarkey said, is the biggest injury of the day, his Achilles. So he's sounded like he was probably done for the year. McCourty's injury was a shoulder injury. Cersei, a potential concussion, and then there was one more guy with a potential concussion. So
Supernal, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So a little more banged up than normal for the Titans after a game. But yeah, now in terms of the big picture now, I mean, this game, considering what happened in Houston or to the Texans, obviously this was huge because Texans came back and won that game against Jacksonville. Can't count on Jacksonville for any help. And this one is, I mean, it's monumental game to have. Now the Titans are 8-6, still in control of their own destiny. I don't know if you saw the video yet of Andrew Luck in his press conference. He was like doing his press conference and watching the Titans kick the field goal to win at the same time. And you could just see his face sink like, oh, man. Because most likely Go ahead.
Well, I was afraid the Colts were gonna. It was pretty clear early they were gonna win. I
Yeah,
was afraid the
they're
Texans and
dominating.
Titans were both gonna lose and put the Colts back in the driver's seat because you definitely want the Texans losing. You want to rely on the Texans losing versus the Colts because the Colts seem like a much more dangerous team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So when you look back at this now, based on what happened, Colts dominated their game. They got the Raiders next week. The Titans, of course, have the Jags at Jacksonville. Lots to talk about with that game. And then the Texans have the Bengals, which really that game for the Texans, I mean, doesn't mean a whole lot. They're going to be playing hard because if the Titans lose to the Jags and they win, they're division champions right then and there. But if they lose that game and we win, it doesn't really affect anything for the final week of the season. Now, in terms of the Jags game, they just fired their coach. So remains to be seen on a short week, which Titans actually play on Christmas Eve. So if you guys, Scotty and I just learned that pretty recently. If you haven't checked the schedule, the game is actually on Saturday. So it's not on Sunday. They still play it at noon Central Time, 1 Eastern. But most all NFL games this week will actually be on Saturday, on Christmas Eve, the 24th. So that's when the Titans will play the Jags. And it's a short week, and they're going to have a new coach. Could be Mike Smith, could be Doug Marrone, I think is some of the early names we're hearing. So it's definitely going to be somebody with experience doing this. But regardless, guys, I mean, a lot of people are, panicking and saying, oh, they're going to play harder. I mean, it's the last 2 games of the year, playoff implications. The Titans can't beat the Jags. They frankly don't deserve to go. So, I mean, this is a game like these other recent games you got to have. It's one game at a time, which credit to Malarkey and the coaching staff. I mean, this is what they've said constantly. Is whenever we sat back, you and I and Jamal a few weeks ago on the podcast, we were talking about, I mean, this was a daunting challenge when you had teams like the Broncos and the Chiefs and the Texans coming up. We knew it was a big challenge, and they took it one game at a time, and now here they're in position to win 2 games and you're division champions. And like I said last week, win 3 games and you're division champs. Noah, we could not have asked for anything more than that. And we're 1 year ahead of schedule. I've seen a few people post that today. This team is 1 year ahead of where everybody thought they would be. And now you've got to go down to Jacksonville. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback because Bortles has been straight up terrible this year. Do they keep him in just with the hopes of saying, okay, it doesn't really matter anyway. If we win, we need to get this guy developed for the future. Will they play more motivated for a coach? Will they be kind of like, let's just get draft position? I think they're going to try as hard as they can to screw the Titans over because nothing would make them happier than to keep the Titans from winning the division. But it's you really can't get any more of an importance on a game. So I think the Titans will definitely be ready for whatever they're going to do.
I don't care who their coach is. They have serious problems pass blocking and their quarterback play. So, I'm not, like you said, if they lose to the Jags, they weren't as good as we thought anyway. But
yeah,
as far as the big picture goes, I'll say this. Today's win was so big that I didn't even care about the Texan game because
yeah.
if they can finish out and win the division, they will have beaten Green Bay, the Chiefs,
I'm glad
the
you
Broncos,
went there.
and their defense is starting to play well. Mariota's playing well. They're back to running the ball like they were. They kind of got sluggish before the bye.
Mm-hmm.
If they finish out like we think they will, they'll be favored in both games. They will be one of the hottest teams going to the playoffs. And forget all this rebuild stuff. We're talking about, watching to see what they can do in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm so glad you
they're a
brought that
legitimate
up
team.
because I was thinking the same thing. I was looking back at this schedule. Now that we know kind of how all these teams have shaken out, you look at the teams they beat. The Lions, they're in playoff contention. They beat the Dolphins, crushed the Dolphins. Dolphins are probably the favorite for a wild card spot right now. They beat the Jags. They beat the Packers, who are surging now and look like they might. It's going to be between them and Detroit towards the end of the year for who gets in there. And then you beat the Broncos and the Chiefs. I mean, when you look at the AFC, it's more of a question now of the top teams, who have they not beaten? And you look at New England, you look at Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I mean, those are really the only three teams that we've not seen them against. We know they can play against Kansas City. We know they can play against Denver. And I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, the way they've played all year, they can play against anybody. They've not been destroyed at any game this season. That's why even when they got down 14-0, I just kept thinking back to that. I'm like, we have been in every single game this year. We've not been blown out yet. It remains our worst loss was the first game of the year, 9 by the Vikings, and we all know how close that game really was. So, I mean, this, like you said, this is totally a legitimate team. And if they do close out the season, win these next 2, like we hope they will, that'll be on a 5-game winning streak, which, gosh, I mean, I saw there was a post today saying we've not had a 3-game winning streak since 2011. If they go on a 5-game winning streak, I can't even imagine how long it's been. I mean, I guess it would have been the year they started out 10-0 or whatever.
That's right. They started 1-3, so they will have finished 9-3 with, a lot of impressive wins and a lot of blowout wins too.
Yeah. Yeah, but these last 2 weeks, man, I mean, both of these games, a lot of people want to talk about how so much of it is ugly. No, guys. I mean, the difference is these are good teams. This is how playoff football looks. Other teams are going to make you make a mistake here and there. I mean, that's why they're good. That's what they do. And the Titans are starting to do just enough of that now that, I mean, they're right there. They're right there. 2 games to go. You win 2 and you're division champs. I think,
that's right. I mean,
was it 2011? Was that the last time we won the division?
No, they didn't even make the playoffs in 2011. 2008 is when they won the division.
That's right. Yeah, 2008. I was looking at I saw the hat in my closet this week. I still have the division champs hat. And yeah, you're right. 2008, man. Long time.
Another thing, I said this the other day, they keep busting on the AFC South. Well, the Titans have beat Denver and Kansas City and Miami. Yeah. So, I mean, give me a break.
Yep. And the other thing we didn't mention, the Texans, pretty much the reason they got that win today is because they benched their starting quarterback, which they're paying millions and millions of dollars for, Tom Savage. And again, I didn't watch the game, but it sounded like he really lit a fire under the offense. And he was throwing to Hopkins, which the guy hasn't done anything all year long. I should know. He's on my fantasy team. Suddenly Savage comes in there and he looks like the Hopkins, of old all of a sudden. So that's going to be an interesting scenario to see what surely he's going to be the starter next week. Bill O'Brien was non-committal, but I don't know that I've ever seen a division leader and winning games. They just came off a huge win against the Colts. Winning games have to bench their starting quarterback. I guess Denver last year would be the closest comparison.
And he was the quarterback that was benched.
Well, they benched Manning first. Or did Manning, he got hurt, and then Manning came back. Osweiler was playing well and stuck with him. Then they benched him.
Well, I think Osweiler started kind of not playing so well down the stretch. And, they pretty much benched Manning, too. They just picked out an injury and said that was why, I think, just because of his reputation. But there's no doubt that
scenario.
He was so bad. There's no way Savage isn't better, which is honestly kind of scary, I guess. they were winning games with such bad quarterback play that it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, I think their defense is. They really are coming along strong, especially Clowney. From everything I've read, he's been playing pretty well recently. Yeah, so with the Jags, though, that's obviously our focus for now. Have to get that win in Jacksonville. And it's one of those games, we could sit here and break it down, but really these teams know each other. They know each other very well. They've met They met once already this season. It was the Thursday night game, a game in which that was really kind of when the Jags season totally started to spiral completely out of control. And Titans played one of their best. Oh, I hit mute for a second. Titans played one of their best games of the year that game and got the win. So now it's so hard to know like what the Jags mentality is going to be right now, their mindset going into this game, because their quarterback situation's in disarray. They just fired their coach. They've only got 2 wins. And to be fair, they've been playing teams really, really close. Really close. I'll try to pull it up here. But I don't know. How do you see this game going down? I'm sure might as well go ahead and get to our predictions here.
I don't think it's obviously going to be the blowout it was last time, but I still expect like a 27-13 type game. I mean, like I said, they still got plenty of problems, especially offensively. Their defense ain't that bad, but their offense is terrible. And I don't think
one of their scores today came off special teams, so we'll have to watch that. Be careful of that again. And yeah, it's other than that. I mean, their offense is really not that great. Defensively, I think we got to be careful, but it's a game the Titans will. I don't know if you've seen any lines yet. I'm sure we're absolutely going to be favored. And the way we've played the past few weeks, you got to think we're going to come into that game understanding the importance of the game and hopefully pull out a win.
Yeah, I think.
Their last couple of weeks here. Go ahead.
I think it'll be a comfortable win. I'm not going to say easy because none of these things are easy, but Jaguars are too bad. They just like today. I mean, they should have won today. They seem to find a way to lose.
Yeah, they lost today by 1. The Vikings beat them by 9 the previous week, and we saw what the Colts did to the Vikings today. So Broncos beat the Jags 20-10. Bills beat the Jags by 7. So, I mean, they've been in games, but only one that's been super close. I mean, all the other ones have been at least a touch. Well, Denver game was 10. Vikings game was 9. Texans today, they only lost by 1. Bills game was 7. The game before that was the Lions. That was a 7-point win.
The Titans are favored by 4.5.
4.5. Okay. And it's at Jacksonville. So
yes,
that's a pretty big favorite toward the Titans then. I think the Chiefs were favored by 5.5 today at home, to give you a point of reference there. So, man, I mean, it's exciting time to be a Titans fan. I think in terms of the bigger picture, though, even if the Titans, I mean, obviously we hope they don't, but even if they lose these next 2 games, it's just really been a remarkable season when you think about the way they've turned this around. And as much as, there's been lots of debate back and forth about Malarkey, one thing that I will say is that they, at the beginning of the year, and even Jamal gave them credit for this. I mean, everybody's giving them credit for this. They said the type of team they wanted to be, and they went out and built the team that way, and they've coached the team that way, which honestly isn't something we've had in a long, long time. I mean, they have an identity. And like you said, I guarantee if you poll the other AFC playoff teams and say, would you rather play the Titans or the Texans? Every single one of them is going to say the Texans. Because they're not nearly the team that the Titans are. So it's just, man, you really hope that we can close out and get these 2 victories. And obviously it sucks that we've been so bad in the division because the tiebreaker doesn't really favor us at all. So we've got to finish outright ahead of the Texans, but we have a chance to do that.
Well, they can finish 3-3 in the division if they finish these last 2 games, and if they finish 10-6 and 3-3 in the division, I think they've done the last 2 years. I mean, it would legitimately be an amazing turnaround in one season.
Yeah. And I still think that Malarkey's probably a long shot for Coach of the Year, but come on, somebody's got to start mentioning the guy. I saw there was a I can't remember if it was ESPN or Bucky Brooks and those guys, but they were talking about like Andy Reid and of course, I always forget
Jason
his
Garrett.
name. Yeah, Garrett, of course. He's probably the front runner. But how can you not even mention Malarkey? I mean, come on. The guy, what they took over. If John Robinson doesn't win some type of executive of the year award, then they really shouldn't even give it to anyone because this roster was so bad. We've talked about it plenty of times on here, but what they're doing really is pretty remarkable. And
I
I
think if
mean,
they
this
finish, I think if they finish 10-6, I think Malarkey will win Coach of the Year.
think so.
Yeah, I saw a few things about it today. I saw him mention, but if they win the division at 10-6, I think he'll get.
Winning 5 straight
Yes,
to close out the year.
I mean Jason Garrett, they're having a good year, but actually, what happened is they went from I think 11-5 or 12-4, and they had all the injuries, and they're just back up to where they was the year before.
Mm-hmm.
So
They're going to close
it's
them right
nothing.
now, by the way, as we record this.
Yeah, and Dallas is kind of struggling here lately, so that could hurt Garrett. But I think if they finish 10-6, I really think he'll get it.
Yeah.
And Robinson, you know, I can't really think of anyone off the bat on it, but yeah, he should get it. And hey, Robisky could get offensive coach of the year. They actually give out the coordinator awards too.
Well, Grimm's got to get some kind of award. One of the worst units in all of football last year, and man, that offensive line. And we can't say enough about them. They were talking even during the game today. The Bucks just went ahead, by the way, late in the third. They were talking late in the game just about how young our offensive line is. I mean, Ben Jones is the oldest guy on the line, and he's not even been in the league terribly long. Let me look it up here real quick before I quote the wrong thing. But obviously, we know Lawan and Conklin are young guys. Spain is a young guy. And the other guy, Klein, that we got from the Patriots, Ben Jones is only 27. I mean,
I thought he was 27. I didn't want to guess, but I thought that's what he was.
this offensive line, hopefully they can lock the Klein. I think is probably the one we need to get a long-term deal for.
He's signed through next year.
Is it through next year already? Nice.
Yeah, everyone on the line. Yeah, everyone on the line is signed at least through next year.
And the crazy thing is they've got quality depth there now too. We've had guys go down here and there throughout the year. Lawan, had that issue where he was thrown out, and Spain missed a couple games. We got Schwenke behind him. Schwenke can play center or guard. So, I mean, the offensive line has just been a phenomenal turnaround. Yeah, 2012 was the draft when Ben Jones was drafted. But all in all, I would just say enjoy this week, Titans fans. I mean, it's been a long time since we've been in contention this late in the year. And what a few weeks ago looked like a long shot has just been steadily increasing each week with the way that we are finding ways to win. I mean, that game today against Kansas City and last week against Denver, did that not just remind you of like a January, a playoff game where the old Steelers-Oilers games, Steelers-Titans games where they're just slugging it out and you make a mistake here and there, and then at the end you just find a way to win it?
Right. I mean, that's what it was. It was fun watching Mariota start clicking and throwing all the touchdown passes and stuff, but you're not going to do that against the contending playoff teams. It just the defense wins in the playoffs, and the fact that they're finding a way to win these games is impressive and promising.
Yep. Yeah, I think that touched on something. A lot of people probably look at this stat line and say, Mariota had an okay game. But if you watch that game and look at those two drives, the drive to get us within one and have the chance to go ahead with the 2-pointer, and then the drive to get down there and attempt the field goal is really quite amazing. I mean, he and Winston both. It's really kind of awesome to see those two guys. And the Bucks look like they're, like I said, they just took the lead against Dallas. We're recording this Sunday night, but looks like he's having a solid season. And now Mariota and the Titans are right there as well. I did think it was funny. Somebody posted the Jags fired their coach. Meanwhile, Mike Mularkey and Jack Del Rio's teams are on the verge of the playoffs.
Hey, if you had, I said this when they made the hire. If you have a good quarterback and a good general manager, the coach has a much easier job.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And I've not even checked on, before we close it out here, I've not even checked on the wild card scenarios. I think that's pretty much a long shot at this point, if I'm remembering correctly. The Dolphins, obviously, we'd win a head-to-head tiebreaker over them, but I think that's really the only tiebreaker that favors us. Well, Chiefs and Broncos, of course, but it seems like the Broncos are going to be out of it given their tough schedule down the road.
I think the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Steelers all won today, so I wouldn't be. I bet Denver's not in the playoff bracket right now since they lost.
Yeah, they all won, and then they were all close games too. For a while, it looked like almost everything was going to go our way. The Steelers were getting beat by the Bengals, the Ravens were down, and we already talked about the Texans being down, and then all those teams, including the Titans, came back and
I was going to say, it didn't look like all of it was going to go our way. Looked like maybe the Titan game
especially.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the Ravens were in a close one with the Eagles. They came back and won that one. So, yep. But I mean, regardless, like I said, of how it plays out, this has been just a insanely more fun season than what we've had in recent years. And if nothing else, I think we've answered the question of, do we have a franchise quarterback? Yes, we do. And can Mularkey be a quality coach in this league? Yeah, I think he's proved that with what he's done already this season. And if they get 10 wins, Scotty's prediction will come true. And it's more possible now than ever. I mean, if you had said this to you at the beginning of the year, I think you would have said, I'll take that. If they're 8-6 going into those final two games, I'll take that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I did say 10 wins, didn't I?
If you did forget, I think Titans Report would remind you. I feel like there's a post about that every other day.
I was sure reminded the first month of the season.
You were. Yep. I'm sure there's a lot of posts you can go back and dig up on that one. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. As I said last week, we actually are recording the podcast live now. Looks like we had around 20 or so of you. Looks like 21 still listening right now. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you aren't a member of Titans Report, you can just follow Titans Report on Twitter @Titans Report. And you don't even have to be a member to post there. So if you want to listen to the podcast, in fact, we always wonder about this, if there's how many people are out there that don't visit Titans Report and listen to the show. There was a post on the thread here. Let me see if I can find it. It was right here. Now it's gone. Well, I saw one earlier that someone was saying they were a fan of the podcast and actually didn't visit Titans Report. They just found the podcast. So thank you all for listening. And anytime you want to listen to us live, you can just hop on over to Titans Report. We post that thread right before we go live. 8:30 Central is the time that we've been shooting for on the evening after the game. Next week could be a little bit different. I actually haven't talked to Scotty and Jamal yet about everyone's holiday plans since the game will be on Saturday. We'll probably try to still do Saturday night, but with everything going on with the holidays, I'm not sure if that'll happen or not. But just follow us on Twitter @Titans Report. You can follow me on Twitter @RetroRaconteur. You can follow Jamal on Twitter @Jamalisms. And we'll be getting the news out one way or another when the podcast is going to go live based on all the holiday comings and goings. And let's see, what else do I have here? You can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. It is just facebook.com/Titans Report. We have a voicemail. I talked a little bit about the voicemails last week, 615-900-0282. Once again, that's 615-900-0282. If the Titans make the playoffs, we might have to do like a special voicemail episode or something where maybe we do even 2 episodes that week, because who knows when they'll have that opportunity again if they get there. You never know. I mean, it really is humbling to be on Titans Report and see some of these guys. We've got some members who have been fans of this franchise for a long, long time. And to just talk about, I mean, it's a thing nobody wants to think about, but as you get older, you really wonder, man, will I ever see my team in the playoffs again before I die? Because we were having a lot of years there where it didn't look promising. And I think now we finally have something to believe and hope in again. So we might have to do a special episode to commemorate that. But obviously work still remains to be done. Got to get a win against the Jags, which would set up that Week 17 showdown in Tennessee against the Houston Texans. So thank you guys so much for listening. Scotty, thank you for coming on once again. We'll try and get Jamal or some others to join us back next week. And we'll talk to you guys again soon. Happy holidays. Have a great one.